the top biggest 5 brawl fights in the 90s. Let's check it out.
Basketball thanks to players like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. In addition, the 80s was also an extremely physical decade, largely in part to the bad boy Detroit Pistons. Although Bird and Johnson would retire in the 90s, that physical style mentality from the 80s did not quite go extinct during the following decade. 90s Sports Nostalgia presents the 5 biggest NBA brawls in the 1990s. And don't forget to kindly subscribe, give us a like, and check out more 90s Sports Nostalgia material. The 5th biggest NBA brawl during the 1990s, the Heat-Knicks brawl during the 1998 playoffs. In a first-round Game 4 matchup between the New York Knicks and the Miami Heat, and with seconds remaining, Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson found themselves isolated away from the action. The two former Charlotte Hornets were not too fond of each other during their time as teammates, and thus, the tension was probably simmering leading up to this exchange. However, it was a game as the 7th-seeded Knicks won the series 3-2. The 4th biggest NBA brawl during the 1990s, the 76ers-Pistons brawl in 1990. After Bill Laimbeer shoved the basketball into his former teammate Rick Mahorn, chaos broke out. The main protagonists during this brawl were Charles Barkley. This brawl occurred in late April 1990, as Pistons head coach Chuck Daly asserted that Barkley had been challenging Laimbeer since the early part of the season. The 3rd biggest NBA brawl during the 1990s, the Knicks-Bulls brawl during the 1994 playoffs. In the Game 3 Eastern Conference semifinals matchup, Knicks starting guard Derek Harper got into it with Bulls backup guard JoJo English, which resulted in Harper throwing English to the ground. NBA Commissioner David Stern was in attendance and sitting a few rows away from the action. Stadium security got involved as it took some time to get back to normalcy. Harper was suspended for 2 games and English for 1 game, but the Knicks wound up winning the series 4-3. The 2nd biggest NBA brawl during the 90s, the Heat-Hawks 1994 playoff brawl. The Atlanta Hawks proceeded to choke Pharrell, which prompted many players on both teams to get involved, especially Miami's Keith Askins, who received a 3-game suspension, and Atlanta's Doug Edwards, who received a 2-game suspension. Additionally, Long received a 1-game suspension. 12 other players are fined for leaving the bench during this fight. And the biggest NBA brawl during the 1990s, the Knicks-Suns brawl in 1993. Shortly before the half ended, tension was quickly rising. The biggest NBA brawl during the 90s transpired. The wildest part of this brawl was when Knicks guard Greg Anthony participated in his street clothes. Consequently, stricter penalties would be put in place because of this fight. In fact, this event prompted the NBA to make rules to punish players who leave the bench during the fight.
Okay, well, I guess we've got our answers there.